Erev Tov, good afternoon. So thankful you're with us to continue learning our series on Geula. And thank you so much for everyone's really special and wonderful feedback regarding these new songs, these new nigunim. Bezrat Hashem, the third one will be out later this week. And maybe we'll sing the first one. I da 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 da. I da 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 da. La 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 da da da. I da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. La 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 la. Oh yeah, da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 do. Do 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 do. Oh yeah, da 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 da. Oh yeah, da 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 do do. I da 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 la 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 da da do 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 I da 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 I da 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 me ani Umani Befo Ani Me Ani Umani Befo Ani Oy mi ata uma ata befo ata dirinai dai 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 So, dearest friends, we began this learning. We began this learning a few weeks ago, and we're just right now starting off with the tefillah, Ribono Shel We think we understand what it means to want Mashiach, but we're open to the notion that perhaps we don't understand what that means. Ribono Shel we think that we're doing everything we can to bring the Geula, but Ribono Shel we're open to the notion that perhaps we haven't even begun. We're not coming here with any preconceived notions of how things should be, ought to be, or will be. We're here to learn. We're here to take in Dvar Hashem, to take the words of our righteous tzaddikim, our righteous blessed sages of blessed memory, and bring it into the manner in which I understand how to approach this very big, big word called Geula, called redemption, which we all long for so badly, whether we realize it or not. And I know that if you're here tonight, then obviously you have a ratzon to attach yourself stronger, to mamish doing whatever ever you possibly can to this word Mashiach, just the word Mashiach. What we have to do tonight, what we're going to be doing is we're going to become map readers. And with the help of the Ramchal and the Gra, we are going to figure out how to read the map of Geula. We began this briefly last time, but we didn't really, we just touched the surface of it. But with the help of the Ramchal and the Gra, the two sages that we're going to be learning from tonight, we can understand something that we're kind of stuck in, I believe, right now. Like right now. You know, I have this inyan that it's hard for me to get over, the fact that out of any taina that I could have on, I mean, this sounds so shallow and stupid, but if there's ever a place to sound shallow and stupid, it's right here with all of you, right? So, what is this thing that's in me that I don't understand how anything other than Mashiach was enough of a world post-Auschwitz. I don't understand it. That's how I feel after every pigua. So then I stop sometimes, I'm like, after Auschwitz, the fact that the Geula hadn't come, that's much more mind-boggling than probably, for me, than probably anything else that's ever happened in this world. Now, one can make a very common and basic mistake. And to think, I don't know, and this is kind of how many of us were brought up, that the Geula is a process that is like up more and more and more. And what happens when you reach like a really bad spot? Does it mean you're not in a world of Geula, or does it mean, no, it's not really bad, it's all really good, we just don't have eyes to see? But there's a big problem when you get into, when you're approached by choshech and hastara, by darkness and by concealment, when you're under the impression that you're in the process of Geula. Just like you and I are in a state of today, we're more or less, whether we really are so makbid in terminology, we know we're in the process of something major. We know we're in the process of something so big. But what happens when we're stuck in a place of choshech and hastara, which is more or less kind of what's going on in the world now? So there's a big problem because my assumptions and reality aren't met. What's my assumption? That Geula is something that keeps on getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And even the Gemara says, kim'ah, kim'ah, kim'ah. A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. But to solve this problem, so we fall into a trap that I want us to make sure we don't fall into anymore, and perhaps we can even pull ourselves out of it. What's the trap? What do we solve? What are we trying to solve? Either we blur the reality, we're convincing ourselves that really there's no hastara, there's no concealment, and the heaviness and hard, dark times really are not real, and really, be'emes, everything is good. And what seems to be like a hastara is just imaginations of being, stemming from a place of being ungrateful. And I start to see, I think I'm so shallow, focusing on such narishkeit, and I'm a kleine cup. In Yiddish, that means a small mind, right? That's one way of me dealing with meeting hastara in the midst of Geula. That's one approach to solve the problem. The other approach is, and it's just as misleading, is that if there's so much darkness, that must mean that perhaps the Satmar Rebbe and that school of thought was right, and forget it, there's nothing here redemptive taking place, and all of the things that I thought that are simanim for the Geula, it's all shtuyot, it's all Zionist conspiracy, if you will, right? Either way, what I did with this right now is I tried to solve something based on an assumption. And what's the assumption? that when the redemption has happened, when the redemption begins, it only gets clearer and it only gets brighter. And that's a siman that it's Mashiach coming. However, the Ramchal and the Gra, these two mighty forces teach us about our assumption. And we have to learn about Geula, the Geulas that were, in order to understand or to be in a better place of what to assume. The process of redemption is built in a two-stage format, and they both say this. And that's what we're going to be speaking about in just a second. The first format is called Pikida, and the second format, the second level, is called Zechira. Anyone that's ever learned the teachings about Geula has come across this, Pikida and Zechira. Pikida means literally to hafkid, hafkada, to deposit. That's the first shlav of Geula. And then afterwards is this concept called Zechira. Hashem remembered. Hashem remembered. Now, the distance between Pekida and Zechira is the world that we're in. When we know how to detect when these two things are happening on the map, then we can understand the concealment and deal with it in a much more proper, realistic way, as opposed to then just like blurring our reality. Zot omeret. And this is like, I'm talking to the kid in me, and the adult in me, and the altakaka in me. I'm talking to each part of me, I believe, that somehow is still under the assumption that it cannot be that we're in any situation of Geula because 6 million were put in gas chambers. And since then we've had war after war and so many bereaved parents, and yet this is supposed to be the Geula. That's a voice in me, friends, that I know that I'm supposed to be the optimist and always showing like hopefully a direction towards light. But this Nikuda in me is the most sensitive one. It's the one that I thank God for Chabad, who taught me that it's okay to keep God on the hook, like to not let God off the hook, kivi yochel, so to speak, right? Saying, Ribbono Shleilim, we still believe in you after that. That's my holy chutzpah. Like there's no way that it's not going to happen if we still believe that you're interested in a relationship with us after you enabled the reality to have us placed in ovens. And I know that's a very heavy statement. In my last thought, that's what's going on inside of here. With Chaver that I get to learn with, I never try to pretend or to say things that I think you want to hear. It's just what I'm feeling. But nonetheless, the way we're going to be learning about Geula tonight, learning Geula through the Ramchal and through the Gra, kind of puts everything into context. The only shaila is are we determined to become professional map readers of redemption? That's what they're providing for us tonight. Professional map readers of redemption, map readers of Geula. When we learn it through the Ramchal and through the Gra, there's no need to blur anything out. There's no need to ignore things. There's no need to be in denial of things. Listen, on Har HaBayit right now, the holiest place in the world, a Yid can't daven. So say what you want to say about, no, it's really a holy, that little Yishmaeli kids can play soccer there, but that I can't say Shema Yisrael. That's choshech. That's hastara. That's not beautiful in the real world and really, really good. That's concealment. However, it doesn't mean that it can't be that we're in the process of Geula either. And that's what we have to push ourselves really deeply, open our hearts and our minds to focus as much as we can. So for tonight, really for every shiur, but for tonight specifically, if you could close all other browsing pages, because tonight we need to go shlav by shlav, and I just want us all to be together as much as we can in a very non-together format. So again, I just want to talk outside of the text and follow me. Pikida, this first level of redemption. Pikida is this tremendous revelation of the light of the Geula. And then after that, something exactly opposite happens. Now, the Gra and the Ramchal told us that the Geula Hashlema V'Amitit, the third Geula that you and I are longing for so badly, will be very similar in certain levels to the manner in which the Geula from Mitzrayim and the Geula coming out of Bavel back to Eretz Yisrael took place. So what happened in the Geula of Mitzrayim? What was the first thing? Pakod pakadati etchem. I remembered you. I'm depositing my love to you, and I'm going to take you out of Mitzrayim. When was that told to Moshe Rabbeinu? Towards the end of Parshat Shmot. And everyone knows the end of Parshat Shmot. Lama hareota la'am hazeh. What ended up happening after the Geula was told over to Moshe Rabbeinu? What ended up happening? It got much worse. The exact opposite took place. Paro made it much worse on Am Yisrael. And then Moshe Rabbeinu has this very legitimate claim on God and saying, what is going on? You told me, since the moment you sent me to let them know that Geula is on its way, things have gotten much, much worse. So there was Pekida, Pakod, Pakadati etchem. Then there was total concealment. And then the Zechira, the second level of Geula, took place when we left Mitzrayim. The same pattern takes place when it comes to the rebuilding of the second Beis HaMikdash. What was the second Pekida, the second moment of a big revelation of light? It was the declaration of Koresh, of Cyrus, that what? Yidden can go back to Eretz Yisrael and rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. But what happened right after he said that? If anyone remembers the story, there was Halshanot. There were all these tattletaling coming from Israel, getting back to Melech Koresh, saying that they're going to try to kill you, they're going to try to overtake you. So what does he end up doing? He takes back his decision, and what ends up happening right after that? Haman, the story of Purim, where every Jew was sentenced to death. Wait a second. We just had a moment of you can go back and build the second Beis HaMikdash, and now we go back to such darkness? Ech ze yachol liyot? After you go through the story of Purim is the second Zechira. What's the Zechira? We did come back to Eretz Yisrael, not all of us, but we did come back to Eretz Yisrael, and the second Beis HaMikdash was built after the story of Purim. So what do we see, Tachlis, Lamaisa, what do we see about these two Geulot? Because the Ramchal and the Gra are telling us, you want to know what Mashiach is all about? You want to know what your era of redemption is all about? You have to learn about how the Pekida and the Zechira took place in the past. And it's clear that the period between the Pekida and Zechira is filled with tremendous difficulties. The two shlavim of Geula, in the middle of them, is such horrible choshech. The question that I want to put out here now, and you feel free to write in the chat if you want. The question is, do you know exactly when the Pekida of this generation began? The Zechira has not taken place yet. The Zechira is when all of Am Yisrael is back home and Melech HaMashiach comes and leads us rebuild Beis HaMikdash, and the whole world will serve God. The question I have is, when do you think the Pekida of, if you believe that it happened already, right? Which I assume that if you're here, especially if you came to Eretz Yisrael, it's because you do feel that. When do you think that happened? When did the Pekida happen? Perhaps you may say that it happened when Rav Kook was speaking about Kibbutz Galuyot in the 1920s and 1930s, and the Yishuv people started moving to Eretz Yisrael. Not that big, but they started. And then the Choshech of Al Choshech took place. The Choshech, like the Ish Kodesh writes, a darkness that the Churban Beis HaMikdash is nothing compared to what the darkness of Auschwitz was all about. Maybe you could say that, I don't know. And it's not necessarily important to know exactly when the Pekida began, but what's clear is that the light of the Geula and that we're on the brink of redemption, and people saying that this door is Ikvisa de Mashiach, this is spoken about more in our generation than ever was. Ever. Our great-grandparents didn't really think of Mashiach or Geula more than any type of, on basically any fear. It was all theoretical. But on a practical level, it was not such a thing. I was born in Galut. I suffered because I'm a Jew, and I died suffering in Galut, and that's just the way it was. And there was nothing abnormal of that. Today, you and I are under the assumption, for some reason, for a beautiful reason, we're under the assumption that ototo, it's about to happen. Like many of us were under the assumption that it was about to happen on Pesach. And we spoke about this. The air was filled with, tonight Eliyahu Navi is coming to the Seder. Tonight it's mamish going to happen. And how heartbroken we sincerely were when we opened the door for Eliyahu Navi and Shlomo Katz. And this year we didn't want to give our children, answers of, oh, if you really have eyes, you could see that he's here. I looked up to Hashem and I said, I'm not giving my daughters those answers, just like I'm not telling my daughters that if they have good eyes, they could actually see Beis Hamikdash on Rabbi. They have very good eyes, and they see a mosque on Rabbi. We're not in this door of, no, it's really there. No, there's choshech, there's hastara, there's absolute concealment, bifrat uvichlal, as well as the fact that there's an immense amount of light too. But you gotta go through the cracks to find it. It's not right in front of you. I don't like when people say, Mashiach is right here, you just gotta open your eyes. No. There's way too much suffering still taking place in the world for me to declare that Mashiach is already here. We want Mashiach to come. There's an energy of Mashiach to come. And if he is here, he hasn't revealed himself yet. So, what we're going to be seeing right now are a number of sources to understand how the Ramchal and the Gra give us koach to understand where you and I are on the map of redemption. You'll see it in front of you right now. We began learning last week the Ma'amar HaGeula, the discourse of redemption from the Ramchal, and it's all based on the pasuk in Micha, which I'll refresh our memories, that we began learning last week. Al tismechi oivati li, ki nafalti kamti. And we learned in Micha it says a Yid in Galus looks at his enemies, his oppressor, and says, "Don't get too excited, my enemies. It's true, I fell, but I also got up. So don't think you have me. Don't think you conquered me. Ki eshev b'choshech Hashem or li." And you might think that I'm just sitting in darkness and total concealment. But you know what? You'll never understand. Hashem or li. God is light to me. It reminds me very much of the Frierdiker Rebbe's story while he was in jail, and the Russian and the communist in the jail was flashing a gun before him, and the Frierdiker Rebbe basically said to him, "You think I'm scared of this? You think I'm scared of this? You only have one world. I have two worlds. This is a person that's in such a dark place, and he's talking literally about the world of light that he has because Hashem Orli." So the Ma'amar of the Geula of the Ramchal, and the Gra references this as well, is based on this pasuk in Micha. Al tismechi oivati li, ki nafalti kamti, ki eshev b'choshech Hashem Orli. Okay. Now let's go inside the Ramchal. We're just learning 3 lines in the Ramchal. Da. Ki la Geula nimtzeu shnei zmanim. Geula has 2 levels, 2 steps. Umitza'anum begeulat Mitzrayim ubegeulat Bavel, like we learned before. We found these 2 levels, these 2 steps, both in the Geula of Mitzrayim and the Geula of Bavel. Venoda lanu, and it's known to us, sheken yeh ba'atida, and it will be like this in the future. Ba'geula ha'atida, she'atida, in the future redemption, lehigalot b'meira b'yameinu, it'll be like this in the future. Meaning the way that it comes with 1 step light, a proclamation. Geula is a beginning, and then choshech. What? Confusion, concealment, not sure what's going on, and then zechira. Oh yeah, you're out. Don't worry. ועל אלו שני הזמנים נאמר הפסוק שהתחלתי בראשונה. The Ramchal says, the pasuk I brought in the beginning from Micha describes these two steps in the process of Geula. Al tismechi oyvaiti li, don't get so excited, my enemy. Zeu zman rishon v'nikra pkida. This alludes to the first shlav, which is called pekida. Ki eshev b'choshech Hashem orli, I will dwell and sit in darkness, but God is light to me. Hu hasheni v'nikra zechira. This is the second level, and it's called zechira. V'lo b'pasuk ze bilvad, ki be'arbe psukim nirmezu ele shnei remazim. So he's saying, I just brought you one pasuk, but really there are plenty of psukim which describe the process that I just described the Ramchal is saying. So the Gra, it helps us understand the concept of Pekida. As you know, and we spoke about this last week, the Gra was one of the greatest Kabbalists that ever lived. Don't get confused between Hasidim and non-Hasidim regarding Kabbalah. It's not, even though in Hasidus, Kabbalah is almost like the olive base, and then it's, like the Ishbitzer always starts Ita Bazar HaKodesh, and obviously the Baal Tanya and Reb Nachman and all the tzaddikim are building, they build their ma'amarim based on quotes from the Zohar, from the world of Kabbalah, from the Arizal, from Reb Chaim Vital, mainly from the Zohar. But the Gra, who was not a Chassid, although he was known as a Gaon Reb Eliyahu HaChassid, the Gra was one of the greatest Kabbalists that ever lived. The Gra writes like this. Look at this. Biur HaGra Lazar in Mishpatim Kuf Yotet Amud Bet. The Gra says, Shekol HaGalut Domeh Lehara. Galut is very much almost parallel to a woman that's pregnant, Isha Be'erayon. Shemitkarevet haleida kol yom, that every day that she's pregnant, she's closer to the day of bringing life into the world. Vehageula, so that was, galut is pregnancy. Hageula doma leleida, but redemption is not pregnancy. Redemption is actual birth. Ukshemitkarevet leiled, as ko'evet yoter mikol yemei heriona. Obviously, as a man, I always feel weird speaking about any of these inyanim, but from what I'm told is that as you get closer to the moment of birth and the contractions come on really tough, and there should be a leida kala, everyone should have healthy births and healthy children. Ukshemitkarevet leiled, and when she gets closer to giving birth, as ko'evet yoter mikol yemei heriona, it's the most pain. And when the contractions are mamish happening and she's about to give birth, those are pangs of Mashiach. You know who says something similar to this is the Kedushas Levi. He says this about the kinot we say on Tisha B'Av morning. We say Keli Tzion ve'are'a kemo isha betzire'a Yerushalayim. And its suffering is like a woman in her contractions. So the Gra is explaining to us that maybe the Pekida, it could be, the Pekida over here, I'm sure, I'm still not certain, but the way that I think I understand it over here is that the Pekida here is that when we begin the process of redemption, it starts in Galut, right? We were told we can leave Egypt from Hashem while we were still in Galut. And we were told you can go and build the Beis HaMikdash when we were still in Galut in Bavel. So therefore, the Pekida is like the Herayon, which is happening in Galut. That's pregnancy. But Geula is the actual birth. And the closer you get to the Geula, the more insane things are going to be. Chavirim v'chaverot, is there anything sane about our lives right now? Is there anything normal about our lives right now? HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed us, as clear as it gets, that kacha, without any world war, any ballistic missiles, any threats, the whole world shut down. And now it's like, ki'ilu not shut down, but it's kind of shutting down again, and then it's shutting down again, but not really, and there's school, there's no school, there's camp, there's no camp, there's shul, there's no shul. The closer you get to the birth, then the more the birth pangs are come on really, really, really strong. Now, here's where we get into a whole other sicha. We get into a whole nother conversation, a whole nother topic. And that topic is it going to get any worse than it is now? And it's not really that bad compared to what we had with the Holocaust. It's now really that bad, you know? Shai Lachshov, is that bad right now? But that's for a whole nother conversation that can't really get into it too much right now. It's also not the point right now. But let's continue and see how the Ramchal explains to us, you know, what the process in its pnimius is all about. So look at the second to bottom source. The Ramchal says in Sefer HaKlalim, Ve'od navin bazeh, she'ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu oseh ela tov. We have to understand, Emunah doesn't mean that things aren't hard. Emunah doesn't mean to interpret darkness and pain and affliction as not hard and easy. But it doesn't mean that the concept of the good God ceases to exist. This is a very important piece over here, dear friends. Something can be hard. It doesn't mean it's bad. That's very important to learn on the map of Geula. Hard, instead of saying bad, you can say, based on the Ramchal, hard means closer, not bad. Hard means, difficult means closer, a step closer. Think of pregnancy. Keep on going to pregnancy with this. So the Ramchal says, "Ve'od navin b'zeh she'ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu oseh ela tov, va'afilu b'zman ha'ester panim. Eino she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu mo'es et olamo." In the times of concealment, of when it feels like, is anyone in charge here? It's not that, God forbid, God is sick of his world. Ela shemazmin tikun lekilkulav, but rather God is preparing the tikkun for the things that are messed up in the world. Ach she'ahazmana zot b'mistarim hi ne'aset. But this order that you call, this hazmana, this order that God is putting in, this doesn't happen on the phone. This doesn't happen, you don't hear it. You don't see it. Uben kach ha'olam sovel ra'ot rabot v'tzarot. And it seems that even though Emunah means that right now HaKadosh Baruch Hu is making a new order in the world like never before, just because I know that to be true, it doesn't mean that when I see people in so much pain, and I'm talking both about shuls being vandalized, sweet, innocent human beings being tortured, and of course I'm talking about the thousands and thousands of people whose parnasa is totally in jeopardy. All of that, it's not good. It's good because Hashem is running the show. But I'm not supposed to look at that and be like, no, it's all good, it's all good. Yes, it's all good, but you know what? Deep down inside, Kadosh Baruch Hu, this hurts. And Hashem is saying, I know, but this is the way to bring in a new Seder. Things got crazy. The only way Hashem was able to continue with the world during the time of Noach was to have a Mabul come and wash away everything and start fresh. Well, Good news is God swore there'll never be another. God made a promise, there'll never be another Mabul. But there's other ways of other types of Mabuls, there's other types of just refreshing. But the Ramchal is telling us it's very important that even in the Hester Panim, it's not that God is looking down at 2020 and he's looking at the world. Or I'm just going to give an example. He's looking at America and he says, it's amazing that because you're a Republican or a Democrat, you hate each other to death, that God is saying, I'm going to go and destroy all of them. That's not it either. But what's for sure is that the world that God created wasn't destined for people to hate other people based on opinions. It's teruf, mukhlat. It's absolute absurdity. And not just in America, here too. If someone is religiously different than me, or not religious, or if someone has a different concept of the Ribono Shel Olam, me hating them may be worse than their non-halachic lifestyle. That's such a threat for people to hear. But the bottom line is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going in that world. And he's saying, sorry, Chavre, I'm ordering tikkunim for, I got to bring some tikkunim in here. This is not the way it goes. So even though, it's going to feel like total concealment, and it's going to be very, very difficult, I'm in, Hashem is Kivyachol saying, I'm into those that aren't so certain and sure about anything other than a ratzon to be closer to me. So the question is, what's going to be on the third time? Will it be exactly like the first two galuyot? Will it be exactly like the first two galuyot or not? So look at the Gra on the bottom. The Gra on the Bi'urei Agadah and Masachet Brachot tells us something very interesting, and that's where we're at. The Gra writes like this, Ki ha-geula atida yeh pam rishona geula mishiabud malchuyot ve'achar kach Gog u'Magog. Okay, so this just got interesting. What did the Gra just say? The Gra messes us up a little bit, because according to this, it's not the order that you and I are used to. What does it mean there's going to be a Geula from Shi'abud Malchut and then Gog u'Magog? And what is Shi'abud Malchut? And what is Gog u'Magog? So, the Gra is saying that even after we are freed from being enslaved by oppressors, and we'll have some kind of freedom, Hem Ye'altzu, we're going to have tremendous additional milchamas. And the height, the peak of this milchama will be milchamas Gog u'Magog, and right after that will come the Geula Shlema. Now, put aside for 1 second what is Milchemet Gog u'Magog, although that is important to understand in our learning. But I want to place that on the side for a second. But let's just understand something. According to what the Gra said, Geula is divided into two shlavim, into two stages. Again, the Pekida is the awakening and the beginning of the Geula. But that is followed by tremendous, tremendous hastara. Look, 1948. There's no more Shi'abud Malchus. We're not oppressed by other nations. Unless you choose to live in Galus and you stay oppressed, that's another story. But you have the so-called opportunity, right? Whatever that means exactly, you have the so-called opportunity to have cherut, to have freedom. But this shlav is escorted and with tremendous, tremendous difficulties, with ups and downs like you can't even imagine. But the shlav, the second shlav, is the zechira. And that comes after a while, and that's the geula shlema v'amelea. So it's clear to everybody. Geula shlema has not happened yet. Pekida seems to have happened already. Now, according to many shitot, and now we'll go back to what we began, the question we asked in the beginning. When and did the Pekida of the final Geula begin? So we mentioned that it began maybe 1946, 1947, 1948. But I saw another train of thought, school of thought, that where it said the Pekida began basically with all these prophecies of Am Yisrael coming back to Eretz Yisrael. That's when it began. And children coming home. This must mean that the Geula has begun. And when did it begin? So the beginning of this period happened about 200 years ago. Well, what happened approximately 200 years ago? So there was an aliyah that began from all over the world, whether it was the Orach Chaim made aliyah from Morocco, the students of the Baal Shem Tov and the Geula came from Europe. Not all of them, but there was a massive aliyah. There was 250 families that came with Rebendel of Vitebsk, by the Hasidim, and then by the Talmidei Hagra. There were also many families. I don't know the exact amount. The Ramchal himself, like we learned last week, makes aliyah from Italy. The Rashash, Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, comes from Teiman, and they all come back to Eretz Yisrael and begin to build this malchus. But together, so let's say that was the Pekida, right? But together with that Pekida, what a hastara came. Listen, there's so many of you, I'm sure that are learning with us right now online. You had Pekidas in your personal lives. You didn't go up from at all. You had nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. Or maybe you did, but you had no neshama with it. And you had your own personal Pekida, light, Geula. Whether it was a certain tzaddik who found you somewhere, or it was your own journey and you found your way home. And then you wondered, you gave up your life for the Ribono Shel Olam, and your children don't feel that drive. And you wonder, what? After what I gave up, I had such a Pekida. I looked at it as if saying, I am beginning a line of Geula in my family. This is it. It was dark until now. My parents and grandparents ate shreif, no taras on mishpacha. There was no concept of feeling shayach to Am Yisrael. But me, I'm going to give it my all. And I'm going to create the path now for the future. And your own children, right? Sometimes it's just what they need is something else. And you're sitting there wondering, was it even a Pekida lechatchila? Was what I experienced a Pekida in the first place? So with the Pekida, you have to remember, it comes out of start. Remember when you find out you're pregnant, how much light there is in the room? And how much you can't even imagine, like having a bad thought, and then maybe a week or two later, you feel horrible. Go back to the Ramchal and the Gra of pregnancy. The hastara began with the hastara that came after the Pekida, really began with the most awful pogroms that were happening in Jewish communities throughout the world. And also part of the hastara definitely was the Enlightenment, which took down so many people spiritually. And obviously followed by that is the awful, awful Holocaust. And the hastara continues with so many bereaved parents, and it continues with the fact that we're back in Yerushalayim, and there's still so much confusion, and there's so much concealment. This hastara, on a certain level, is much more difficult to deal with than the hastara that preceded the Pekida, because I wasn't under any impression that I'm in a process of redemption before the Pekida. But once the Pekida begins, that's what makes it so much more difficult to make sense of what I'm dealing with. Therefore, you have to remember and hold on tight when you're reading the map of Geula. The map of Geula tells us that you must remember that this hastara that we are in now is an absolute shlav towards the Zechira, which is the Geula Shlema. We have to remember this. How do you remember this? There are many different ways. It's not just reminding people things. But that when it comes to, limud ha-geula, you are, like we always say in our shir, you are what you learn and you are what you daven. So we have to understand what it means to daven for the geula, and we have to understand what it means to learn about the geula. This is the first shlav of learning about the geula, because when I learn about the geula like this, I have some kind of a mivneh. I have some kind of an outline. I begin to build a binyan. Things start to kind of, look, we say shtem with my relationship to redemption. What the world is going to look like, how exactly it's going to be. We could get there. Rambam, other tzaddikim will explain to us what those things look like. But we have to be very, very clear. One time I had a guest come to my apartment before I was married. He came for a meal, and he saw a picture of the Lubavitcher Rebbe in my living room or in my dining room, and he looked at me and he said, he didn't say, "Are you Chabad?" He said, "Oh, you think the Rebbe is Mashiach?" I said to him, if Mashiach would come and it was him, would you be freaked out, surprised? He said, "No, I would just be freaked out and surprised if Mashiach even came." This is someone who considers himself to be from the religious Shomer Torah and Mitzvahs camp. That's much more the Amalek camp than the Shomer Torah and Mitzvahs camp. And even right now, let's be honest, I've been getting it on my head from different Rabbanim and different people in Chutz La'aretz in America that are, they're saying to me, what do you think it's your tafki to talk about, you think that's what you should be doing right now, to scare Jews, talk to them about coming home? You think that's what it's about right now? And it's really been a beautiful process of realizing that we have the all-star team of all-star teams here. We really do. My friend Yossi Sasson always likes to call it Team Mashiach. I really feel like it is. Not that we're the chosen ones and everyone else is in darkness. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the ability to have a drive for more, a ratzon for more. Those of us that are here already, we already established that it's clear to us that the real avoda only begins once we're here. It's not that we're here and now it's here. It's that we're here. Now we could look, breathe, and think about Geula with the Avira of Eretz Yisrael, which makes you, like Gemara says, Avira de Eretz Yisrael machkima. So we can go through this current shlav in life where there was this crazy few months of COVID, crazy riots, and maybe the world will go back to somewhat of normalcy in a few months. It could be. But that's just preparing the stage for the next level of hastara. We don't want a next level of hastara. Can we afford to have another level of hastara? Another level of concealment? I want to believe that there's no need for it. I want to believe there's absolutely no need for another layer of things being unclear. So I invite us all to continue with our learning about Geula, to clarify for us, to the extent that it's possible for us, to understand what it is we're asking for, what it is we're davening for, what it is we've been crying for, so that Be'ezer Hashem Yisbarach, there'll be one song that we will never have to sing again. That's the song Va'afilu Behastara Shebetoch Ha'astar. It's a Gevalt song. But can you imagine a world where that's like a completely non-relevant song to sing? What do you mean, a concealment amongst the concealment? There's no such thing, right? Well, there still is right now. But we have to know that really within this Hastara Shebetoch Ha'astara, the Ribbono Shel Olam is right there, and he's preparing the Geula. He's preparing it so clearly to make sure that when the new light is revealed and the light of Zechira comes down in the world, there's no safek, there's absolutely no doubt, and no one will be left behind. על כן משכתיך חסד באהבה סולם אהבתיך על כן משכתיך חסד ההורים ימושו בהגבהות תמותנה בחסדי מיתך לא ימוש ההורים ימושו בהגבהות תמותנה בחסדי מיתך לא ימוש an everlasting love. I have loved you, for this I have drawn you with my love. An everlasting love. I have loved you, for this I have drawn you with my love. The mountains will crumble and the hillside will fade away, but my love for you will not end. Please sing with me if you know it. Ehodim yamushu behagevos temutena bechasdi meiteh lo yamush. The mountains will crumble and the hillside will fade away, but my love for you will not end. The mountains will crumble and the hillside will fade away, but my love for you will not end. Erev Tov, Yom Tov, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good everything. Zechira, Zechira, here we come, Zechira. Here we come stronger than ever with more love than the world ever tasted, Be'ezrat Hashem. Laila Tov, everyone.